Weapons at last, weapons at last. Thank the Shapers, we finally have the Cataclysm weapons at last. Over the next few days, and hopefully by the end of Wednesday, we will have all 9 weapon reviews out there for you guys. To give you all an advanced idea of what these weapons are, what they can do, their perks, their downsides, when is the best time to use them, what javelins we recommend you using them with, and in general just an overall weapon review. A quick disclaimer before we get into this video, and any review or build videos going forward in the future will have this disclaimer at the beginning. All these opinions are my own, based on my own personal play style, and to be completely honest with you, what roles that I managed to get. As I was making posts on Twitter and the YouTube community tab, keeping you all posted about where these videos are because it is taking me a while to make them, I saw a number of comments about how awful these weapons are, or how terrible the vast majority of them are, when, believe it or not, I haven't experienced that yet. Sure, a couple of them aren't the greatest, and it really does depend on if it's a masterwork or legendary, and what roles you got on it. And for this first ever weapon review video, no other weapon has merited this more than Riza's Ripper. But before we do that, let's take a look at Riza's Ripper, and specifically my Riza's Ripper, which I am absolutely in love with, and I'd almost call this a god roll weapon. First up, Riza's Ripper is a blade slinger weapon, one of the 3 new weapon types to come from the Cataclysm. The base damage for Riza's Ripper is 5947, its blast damage is 4511, its RPM is 60, and the ammo is 3. Now obviously with all blade slingers, they basically charge up a disc and fire. For most of them, like Riza's Ripper and Shardstorm, you have to fully charge the weapon in order to use it. You can't just half charge it and fire it, it has to be a full charge. The intrinsic perk for Riza's Ripper is that it fires a barbed blade that inflicts ongoing shrapnel damage on enemies. Basically, think of it like a blade that continuously does bleed damage. Now, it is worth mentioning that my Riza's Ripper is really powerful. With a plus 225% weapon damage increase, a 35% additional weapon mag size, an additional on top of that 135% weapon mag size, and of course 50% additional physical damage. In other words, my Riza's Ripper is a beast. Though I have seen other people complain that Riza's Ripper isn't all that strong. Again, it is a powerhouse of a weapon if you can get the right rolls on it. And of course, really quickly, I did want to brag about how beautiful this weapon looks, and how different it looks from any of the other blade slinger weapons. If there is one thing that the Anthem team has nailed with these new weapons, is that they have a whole lot more personality than anything we have seen before. And that's just in terms of how it looks. In terms of how it works and fires, totally different from its siblings. And by the way, yes, that is a glorious grab it on the right side of Riza's Ripper. But without further ado, let's take a look at this weapon. Now, Riza's Ripper is a powerhouse of a weapon, and although it does take a little while to charge up, like most of the Cataclysm weapons, it's not too terribly bad. As you will notice, after the disc is fired from Riza's Ripper, it will continue to spin and deal damage once it has made contact with a physical object. Now, there is one thing to be made of note with Riza's Ripper. Yes, it has impressive range on it, and it can be used as a short range or a long range weapon, but it is more of a single target weapon, which is why I typically recommend you using it on a Ranger or a Colossus. Though even then, I don't think it's a great fit for the Colossus, but that's just me personally. And in addition to that, if you have elemental ops on your Ranger, I highly recommend you putting that on with Riza's Ripper. This is because on a hit streak of 5, it applies acid damage to the target, and Riza's Ripper deals 5 ticks of damage before it disappears. So keep that in mind, as it does add some elemental perks to Riza's Ripper. Now, in addition to that, Riza's Ripper does have a minor downside, or maybe upside depending on how you are as a marksman. As you can see on these brutes, they have relatively small heads but large bodies, and I was missing my headshots more times than not. If you do manage to land a body shot, most of the time you will just get the base physical damage from the attack. However, if you do manage to land the headshot, it will continue to deal critical damage for each and every last one of its ticks until it disappears. Though on smaller enemies like Dominion troopers, or brutes, or whatever with smaller head areas, it's really not going to do you too much good to aim for the head, or even use it in general. Though on larger targets like the Ursix or even Vara, it is a miracle worker, as it can shred down those targets in no time flat. I was able to take down a GM3 Vara with nothing but Riza's Ripper in under 4 minutes. Which is really awesome because before, all I was dealing was elemental damage to Vara and priming and detonating for my team, but now I'm actually able to contribute with Riza's Ripper, and oh my gosh, does it Riza's Rip Vara right up. A few other small notes with this weapon: it is not a primer or a detonator. It is strictly damage. Unless you equip, like I said, elemental ops, which will allow you to have some kind of elemental perk with it. Also, it is not the greatest thing to use against shielded enemies like Valkyries. Sure, it does do damage, there's no denying that, but I would recommend other Cataclysm weapons in order to take down Valkyrie shields or enemy shields in general. To summarize, there are a lot of perks and a few downsides to this weapon. First up, it deals a massive amount of physical damage, especially if you can get the right rolls. It doesn't have too long of a charge-up time, and its reload speed is pretty quick. It does have a bleeding, lingering effect, which basically means if you do manage to land that headshot, you can either go and leave that enemy and allow them to suffer and die from the blade, or you can continuously fire more and more blades into their heads. Wow, that sounded really, really bad. The downsides to this weapon are, as I said before, it's not a primer or detonator, and it's primarily for physical, which isn't a bad thing. It's just a downside for a Storm main like me, and something to be considered. It is only a single target weapon, and the punishment for not landing headshots is pretty significant. In other words, make your shots count. All in all, Riza's Ripper is a phenomenal weapon, and I'm glad I got a god roll on it, or a near god roll on it, as my first ever legendary from the Cataclysm. It's one of my top 3 favorite Cataclysm weapons, but what do you all think of Riza's Ripper? Have you managed to get it yet, or have you been getting less than stellar rolls on it? Or make me jealous and tell me about the great rolls you managed to get on it. Please be sure to let me know in the comment section below, as I will always read through all of them and respond if there's conversational potential. And if you want to stay up to date on all things about the Cataclysm and your game, Anthem, then be sure to leave a like and subscribe, as it really does help me out. And be sure to hit the notification bell so you never miss out on one of our videos. A special and monumental thank you, as always, to my patrons and channel members for your generous donations and support to your Anthem. Your donations mean the world to me, and I am forever humbled and grateful for your support. I hope all of you fantastic freelancers have a phenomenal day as always, and I'm looking forward to seeing each and every last one of you in the next video very soon. And remember, freelancers, we are strong alone, but we are stronger together.